Hey guys, welcome back to the Farmer's Table. My name's Jess. If you're new here, I'm really glad you're here, and if you're not new here, I'm really glad that you're back. This morning, I want to invite you into my kitchen to cook some brunch with me. Today is a special day. It is my dear husband, Sweet Maya's birthday. He's sitting at the kitchen table building Legos, post-Christmas Legos with the kids, and I am going to make a couple of things for brunch. Jeremiah loves brunch. So I'm gonna make Dutch baby pancakes. I recently did a tutorial video. I'll link it below if you haven't seen those. Interesting little tidbit. I had many people who are Dutch reach out to me and say, I've never heard of this. And we actually decided to try to get to the bottom of it. And it appears that Dutch baby pancakes are actually just German pancakes. German people are very familiar with them. And it seems to be a very old mispronunciation of Deutsch, which is of course German. Yeah, and it has nothing to do with Dutch people. So now that we've cleared that up, I'm gonna make a Dutch baby pancake. I'm gonna make a blueberry sauce to go with that because that's how Jeremiah prefers his Dutch baby pancakes, with some sort of berry sauce. That I'm gonna just be kind of winging. Now I'm gonna show you guys one recipe today while I'm doing these other things. I'm gonna show you how to make a super basic quiche. I just call it a farmhouse quiche. It's very simple. When my kids were little, we called it egg pie because had I presented it to them with a weird name like quiche, there's no way they would have tried it. So egg pie, they knew what they were in for. Quiches, I will put the printable recipe down below, and I'll get fairly specific with what you can do, but I want to really encourage you to play with this. I like to view a quiche as like a base recipe that you can explore and customize however you want. So first you need a crust. If you want a crust, you don't have to have one. If you leave the crust out, you have a frittata, and then it's gluten-free. So a lot of times I'll make one with crust for my kids and one without crust for us. You can do any crust you want. You can do a store-bought crust that comes in a tin pan. You can get a roll-out store-bought crust and put it in a pie pan. You can make your crust from scratch and roll it out, whatever you want. And this is another way you can make it gluten-free, because you could do a gluten-free crust. But the base, and of course I use a really deep pie pan. All my pie pans are really deep because I like deep pies. I do my base with 5 eggs and 1 cup of milk. If you have a smaller pie pan, you can just leave one of the eggs off and like a little bit of the milk off. It's going to turn out. You know, I mean, like a little variation like that is not going to make a big difference in the texture. But I do 5 eggs, a cup of either milk or half and half or cream. Any of those is fine. Obviously, the heavier dairy you use, the more kind of creamy and substantial your quiche is going to be. So that's up to you. I prefer the flavor of a quiche with heavy cream. Obviously, that costs more. I've made many quiches with just milk, so that's fine. And then you need some meat, some cheese, and some veggies if you want to put them in. Now, I typically go for about 6 ounces of meat, 8 ounces of cheese, and any veggies that I put in, I try to steam some of the liquid off of them first. So that's kind of like the base model. I'll tell you, like today, I'm not going to measure anything. I've made so many quiches, I can eyeball this now, but those are more or less the starting point. So if you're going to do like 8 ounces of cheese, you could do 5 ounces of shredded Swiss and 3 ounces of shredded Parmesan. I like throwing Parmesan in the mix. I think that a good hard cheese just kind of balances it out well. With the meat, if you don't eat meat, don't put meat in it, it's fine. Like, you don't have to, but you can crumble up a few pieces of bacon. You can slice up, you know, a handful of slices of deli ham if you've got like lunch meat in your fridge. If you've got leftover chicken, you can shred up like a half a chicken breast. I will say quiches are one thing. You will never hear me say this in any other application ever. You can put too much cheese on a quiche. Like, I have in the past, like, piled it in there, and then when you go to cut it, you don't get that fluffy, eggy, light texture. It's just a hunk of cheese that strings. And I mean, if that's your thing, like, go for it. But if you want a quiche, you know, like, you gotta rein it in on the cheese addition. You don't necessarily have to measure these things, but those are my go-tos, and today I'm going to throw this one together with just something really basic I have in the fridge. So typically you would preheat your oven to 375 for a quiche. I've got mine set to 400 today because I'm also cooking Dutch baby pancakes, and the higher heat is more important for that. And this will be fun. It'll be okay to cook this in the same space. I'll just have to keep an eye on it. It'll probably cook a little bit faster. All right, so I've got a handful of slices of lunch meat. This is something that was left over, and it's not really enough to make sandwiches for all my kids or anything like that. So I'm going to stretch this lunch meat and use it to make this quiche. Pie crust in whatever pan you're going to use, and then you want to evenly spread the meat on the bottom. Good ideas for this are crumbled up bacon is really good, sausage is good. You can do like ground beef. Make sure you drain it real well after you brown it first, and then drain it real well. And then do like cheddar with that. You can kind of make like a cheeseburger type theme with the bacon. I really like Swiss with bacon. Of course, you want cooked bacon. Any meat you put in a quiche needs to be cooked first. With chicken, I've paired that with multiple different things. I've done kind of like a taco seasoning with shredded chicken to kind of make like a taco quiche. And that's really good if you shred up some lettuce and cut some tomatoes and kind of pile it up on top to do the taco thing. When my garden is going in the summer, I will often just go pick a variety of things, dice them up, and saute them in the pan until they release a lot of their liquid, and then throw it in and throw this egg and milk base over top and bake it. Usually I do that as a frittata because I'm the one who's gonna eat that, so I don't usually do that in a crust. And of course there's like, I think spinach, egg, and cheese is quiche Florentine. That's like a really popular mix. If you wanted to put spinach or kale in, you would need to saute it first to get a lot of the liquid out so that your end product doesn't end up soupy. One thing I love is caramelized onions in quiche. They're so good. So I like to caramelize a bunch of onions and then freeze them in small portions. So I've got them. I don't have any right now. I need to do that. Huh? I do have some caramelized onions. Oh, Jeremiah cleaned out the freezer the other day. You are awesome. I didn't separate this into a small enough portion. I'm just going to cut a hunk of it off. Look at that. I got stuff in my freezer I don't even know about. Alright, so I've got a couple of like hunks of frozen caramelized onions. I'm going to stick them in this pan and heat them back up. That way any of the water that's frozen on here will steam off, and I'm not putting it in my quiche. So while that's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and crack 5 eggs into a bowl. And here I'm going to add 1 cup of cream to this. We have dairy cows, and so we have raw milk and cream. And I'll tell you that this cream is just the tiniest bit sour. When you have raw dairy, it doesn't go rancid, it just sours. So you can still very much use it. And I think that it being just a touch sour, it's not noticeable. Like in cooking, you probably won't even be able to tell. It is gonna definitely change the flavor a little bit, but in a good way, but I wouldn't want to put it in coffee. That's like the point that it's at. Still can cook with it, don't want to put it in coffee. Alright, let's set this to the side. So to caramelize a whole bunch of onions to have to use in applications like this, get a really big Dutch oven. When I do it, I'll usually thinly slice. I don't know, I have a really big Dutch oven that's like 14 quarts, and I'll do 12 to 15 really big onions at one time. You can do that on a smaller scale. If you just want to do it in a cast iron pan, you could do like 3 or 4. They're going to shrink down a lot, but you thinly slice them and put them in the pan with a little bit of oil or butter on low heat and just stir them really regularly. Some people add sugar. I don't, because I like the natural sugars that come out in caramelized onions, but you can if you want to make them more sweet. But it takes about 45 minutes to an hour to really caramelize them to this level. And then you can just freeze them. That was kind of a big bag that was in the freezer. I prefer to do it in smaller portions, but sometimes, I don't know, sometimes maybe I've run out of smaller containers or whatever. I can't remember what happened when I put that in such a big bag, but it's such a great addition. If you ever want to cook a steak, you can have caramelized onion ready to throw on top of the steak. It's great to put on a baked potato. It's great to put on a burger patty. It's great to stick in a quiche. Caramelized onions are really nice to have on hand, and if you do it all at once, you don't have to go through such a time-consuming process. It's not hard, it just takes time every time you want to be able to add this little bit of elevation to a dish. So this is how flexible you can be with this. I have no clue what kind of cheese this is, and I'm going to use it. It's probably cheddar. It may be Monterey Jack. I don't think it's cheddar. It's really mild. Anyway, it's fine. We're going to use it. I'm putting the layer of cheese in on top of my meat. Like I said, it's roughly 8 ounces total. I think I came up with that before. I used to bulk buy, and I would go to the grocery store, and like 1 bag of cheese was 8 ounces, and so that's kind of where I came up with that. And what I started doing is I would get like the small bag of cheese and I would throw it in. And then I started experimenting with putting Parmesan in and stuff like that and mixing it up. So it's funny, some of the recipes that I have done for a really long time, you can see where they are rooted in buying groceries at the grocery store, and I just maintained those measures once I was shopping differently and also growing our own food. Old habits die hard. Alright, so throwing the caramelized onions on. I like to put all the toppings in before I put the actual egg base over it. That way they're just spread out evenly, so when you're cutting a piece of this, it's going to be relatively balanced. Alright, on top of this, I'm going to do a sprinkle of dried thyme. I've got some black pepper. Salt. I will tell you, with salt, if you're using deli meat, if you're cooking bacon in this, if you're using sausage, do keep that in mind when it comes to doing salt and pepper, because if you're using like a really seasoned meat, it is going to lend to the overall flavor. The thing in eggs are so delicate, they'll pick it up. A little sprinkle of paprika, because I put it in everything. And then on top of your fillings, you just pour in your egg mixture. One cheese that I actually really love using in quiche is feta, but I just don't have any right now. I've done kind of like an Italian thing where I do like mozzarella and then some sort of Italian meat. You can do so many different things. I'd be curious like what your favorite combination is. If you've made quiches before, what do you like to put in them? All right, so I'm just gonna flatten this out a little bit and make sure that it's all even. Another little thing that I often do, I don't know what a big difference it makes in the flavor, but I usually put some dried parsley on top of something like this. It's not going to have a massive flavor, but it is going to give it a nice visual effect. Just have some green on top. Alright, so I'm going to stick this in the 400-degree oven. It takes about 40 minutes to cook. I'm talking and cooking and let my coffee get cold. Mom life, right? Alright, next thing, I'm going to go through the process of making the Dutch baby pancake. I feel like it needs a new name. I guess German pancakes. A lot of people do call them German pancakes, and a lot of people noted that this is very much similar to like a Yorkshire pudding. So I suppose we could call it any of those things. I'll probably keep calling it Dutch baby pancake because I've called it for like 15 years. So, alright, I gotta put this butter in the oven and I'll mix up my batter. Alright, got my batter in here and I'm just gonna blend it up real quick. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to make this blueberry syrup. So we need to talk about syrup really quick. I know that for those of you who live in New England, you just cannot fathom that there is any place in the world where people do not put boiled down tree sap on their pancakes. I love maple syrup. It is definitely my favorite of all the syrups, but I cannot make that from my trees, and that's not something that we really have access to. It doesn't get cold enough here. And with that being the case, I mean, like, it's really common to go to the store. I mean, they have all of these syrup options that are really just sugar water. In a lot of cases, it's corn syrup and additives and flavors and stuff. So while I think maple syrup is definitely the best option as far as like something sweet to put on your pancakes goes, if you need to make syrup from scratch, it's literally just sugar and water in equal parts that are cooked down. You can do it with brown sugar to make a more flavorful syrup. I'll put a link to my like regular pancake syrup recipe if we don't have maple that I'll throw together with brown sugar, water, and then butter added in at the end. Today, making this blueberry syrup, I'm just going to do a cup of sugar, a cup of water. I'm going to do a splash of lemon juice because that'll go well with the blueberries. I'm going to bring that to a boil, and then I'll throw these blueberries in and let it cook down, and that'll be it. All right, this is boiling, so the blueberries are going in. We actually had these blueberries for our lizard, but they're starting to get a little bit on the soft side, so I don't want them to go bad. I could just stick them in the freezer, but I could also make the syrup. So I'm going to boil the blueberries in this sugar syrup and let it cook down a little bit. Once it comes back to a boil and they start popping, I will turn the heat down and just let it simmer till it kind of thickens up and reduces down some.
Stir it around.
There's that. Alright, here's this. Looks pretty good. That crust got a little bit toasty, but basically your quiche is done when it's set up in the middle. So a lot of times that comes with the top being kind of brown, but whenever if it's real jiggly in the middle and looks real watery, it's not done yet. That took 35 or 40 minutes. It went a little bit faster and the crust got a little toasty around the edges because I had the oven hotter for the Dutch baby. Also, I'll turn the heat off here and let you see. So this is after this has cooked down, you know, 25 minutes or so. It's nice and syrupy. It's still a little thin. You could put a thickener in here, arrowroot powder or cornstarch. You could have put that in and let it cook. I don't mind this. I think it's fine. But if you like a thicker syrup, especially if you're used to store-bought stuff, you can always thicken it that way. Syrup is one of those things I will never purchase from the store again. It blows my mind that for like one jug of like whatever the brands are of pancake syrup, which are full of corn syrup and additives and all that stuff. I mean, a lot of times those things are like $4 or $5 and it's literally just sugar and water. And maybe you can add in some like extract, or you can add in some butter, which would of course bring the price up, but exemplify the flavor. In this case, sugar water and blueberries, little lemon juice. It's so easy. We should not be buying easy things like this. It's just a waste of our grocery budget. All right, well, here's our little brunch. Jeremiah got his breakfast request for his birthday. I'm gonna call him in. He's doing farm chores. So here's where you guys can see the texture. This is like a really dense, eggy. This is fallen a little bit, but this is gluten-free, so if you do it with regular flour, it will be just a slight bit fluffier, but not a whole lot. And we're gonna serve this with the syrup on top. And then here is the quiche cut into, where you can kind of see what's going on in there. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and cooking breakfast this morning. God bless you. Until next time.